Well, there are a number of stories that I want to talk to you about today. And the first headline I want to talk about, really first and foremost, as far as Bible prophecy is concerned, is what's going on in Israel, and specifically about the peace process. And the reason why that's so important is because the Bible says, both in Daniel and also in Revelation, that there will be a peace with many, and that the Antichrist would come in the name of peace, and that this peace process would finally come to pass, and that would kick off the 7-year tribulation period. So day one of the tribulation period will start with the signing of a peace with many. And those that will probably be involved are, of course, Israel, the Antichrist, and the moderate Arab world. And I wouldn't rule out the fact that Russia and Iran, Turkey, and a number of other countries might play a part of the peace process, meaning that I believe that under Russia's watchful eye in Syria, that they will keep the peace as part of the peace process in Syria, so that this peace process would be successful. You know, the Bible says in in Ezekiel 38, that there would be an attack on Israel, and the attack would be led by Russia, and Iran would be in the mix, and so would Turkey, and a number of other nations would also take part. But those will be the three main players. Well, those three main players are in Syria right now, and at least two of the three are planted on Israel's northern border. And as I said, the Bible says that one day they will come down upon Israel, or at least say that they're going to come down, but God will intervene and destroy them. And the Bible says he'll do so on Israel's northern border. Well, we'll get back to that in just a second. But the first thing I want to talk about, I said, was the Palestinian-Israeli peace process that's going on right now, that basically engulfs not only those two nations, but also the United States and also the moderate Arab world. Well, as you know, Mr. Abbas, the Palestinian leader, has been going around to different factions, different organizations such as the UN, Russia, the moderate Arab world, and also to Europe, to try to drum up support for having the U.S. No longer be the lead role in the peace process. Well, they simply know that's never going to happen. But here's the first headline. It says, Palestinians, Europe pressure Trump over state on 1967 lines. So what's happening is that Europe and also the Palestinians are in contact with the Trump administration in an attempt to make changes that would reconcile with the 1967 lines. Now, of course, the Trump administration did say that there could be some changes that would come into effect, but it's highly unlikely that it would go all the way back to 1967 lines. There would be some land swaps that would be involved, and we simply don't know what the full plan entails yet, but that should be coming out in the weeks to come. So frankly, I anxiously await this peace plan that Mr. Trump is about ready to unleash. You know, I've had a number of people comment that they don't think that the United States will be involved. I have to believe that they will. You know, it is possible that they could relinquish the lead role if this plan is rejected, but I have to believe they're still going to be involved. But we must take in consideration, of course, that the Bible does say at some point in time that this peace process will be completed by a man coming out of the European Union. So I don't know how that's going to switch over, but the Bible says at some point in time it will. So that's certainly something that we should be looking at as well, seeing what's going to be developing from the European Union. The fact that they are in a major role and are in the picture tells you a lot that they'll play a big part in this particular process. And again, this is prophetic because it was predicted thousands of years ago that when this peace process does take place after Israel becomes a nation, that the revived Roman Empire would rise again and the Antichrist would come out of this block of nations and ultimately bring a peace process together. So you're looking at a number of things that are happening now. Again, Israel became a nation in 1948, regained Jerusalem, which the Bible predicted. We find in Zechariah 12:3 that during this time period that Jerusalem would become a cup of trembling for the nations, and that's exactly what's happened. There is a big uproar over the fact that Mr. Trump has declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and is moving the embassy to Jerusalem. In that same time period, the Bible says that Russia, Iran, and Turkey, and a number of other Arab nations would come against Israel, and that's exactly what's taking place right now. In fact, here's an article coming out of Israel Today, it says, the headline is Israel Prepares for War in the North. And reading from the article, it says, and quoting from one of the generals in Israel, he says the people who were supposed to be the brakes in this situation were the Russians, whose planes are currently massacring Syrian civilians in Damascus. The Russians aren't doing their job, and the Americans, unfortunately, aren't in the area and hardly say anything. So if the situation continues the way it is, we're on our way to another wide-scale war in Israel's north. I pray that I'm wrong. The explosive situation is just getting worse because Israel, according to foreign sources, is not sitting and waiting, and things are happening. It's important that the Israeli public understand the situation. The public needs to follow the IDF's lead, and the IDF is doing its job and preparing for all possibilities. And that's really what the Bible says that other nations, including the United States, would do. They would sit on their hands and allow this war to develop. And develop it is. In fact, here's another report from Israel Today. It says, report, satellite surveillance finds Iranian missile base in Syria. And this isn't just any missile base. And let me tell you a little bit about this article. It says Iran's presence in Syria can no longer be dismissed as involvement in its allies' ongoing civil war. Now, speaking of Syria, Fox News reported this week that satellite imagery that revealed a new Iranian military facility near Damascus. The size and position of the two large hangars indicate that the base is hosting short and medium-range missiles. It says the rebellion against the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad wouldn't require Iran to deploy medium-range missiles to the country, especially given that the Russian Air Force is also involved on their behalf. The only reasonable assumption is that these missiles are meant for Israel. And if you keep up with my reports, you know also that Russia has now brought in Su-57 stealth aircraft. And for the reason for bringing these stealth aircraft in is because they will now be used to surveil and take out any aircraft that come into Syrian airspace. And most everyone believes that that message was sent basically to Israel. So not only will Israel have to deal with the sophisticated anti-missile batteries from Russia in Syria, but also now will have to deal with their stealth aircraft. So I'm not sure how Israel's going to deal with that. There may be a dogfight that goes on between Russia and Israel in the coming days. But there's no reason not to believe that Iran now is harboring short and medium-range missiles in Syria, and they're meant for Israel. So I have to believe that Israel will take the chance and will once again enter into Syrian airspace, and there may very well be a fight on our hands between Russian and Israeli stealth fighters. And here's another story that you should pay close attention of. Iran believes so strongly that Israel's demise is imminent. They are officially hosting a festival that celebrates the demise of Israel, and not just the fact that they're going to be destroyed at some point in time, but very soon. And here's what the article says. Let's read a little bit of it. It says Iran already plays host to a conference. Well, it's an international conference denying the facts of the Nazi Holocaust against the Jewish people. Now, the Islamic Republic is gearing up for the first ever international Hourglass Festival, a gala event celebrating the imminent demise of the state of Israel. But not everybody is on board with Israel's destruction. And you might find it strange, but here is a poll that just came out. And it's not an official poll, but nonetheless, it is a poll, and this is shocking, that those who were asked if they would back Iran or back Israel, of the nearly 24,000 that did respond to this poll, 56% of Arabs said that they would back Israel in any war that Iran and Israel got into. So I thought that was kind of shocking. It kind of tells you really where the Middle East is heading, and that may also play into the fact that maybe not as many Arabs hate Israel as the extremists might want you to think, such as the Palestinians and the Iranians, and of course Hamas and Hezbollah. And that might also play into the fact that when the Temple Mount becomes part of the issue of the peace process, they may go ahead and allow Israel to rebuild their temple on the Temple Mount because they don't see that much opposition, or at least as much as had been previously believed. And even though this is an unofficial poll, it's still shocking that now 56% of those who did take the poll indicated that they would back Israel. I simply can't believe that that would have been even possible, probably even 10 years ago. Well, now I want to present to you a couple stories also coming out of Russia. As you know, President Putin is about to be overwhelmingly elected to another term in office. And you know, Mr. Putin has been known to say things that simply are not true in order to boost his image. And one of the things that he did say is this right here, is that if he had the opportunity to go back in time and to save the Soviet Union or rekindle it even today, he would do so. And you know, I have a feeling that's really where Russia is headed anyway. It may not be official, but as far as Putin is concerned, he is in the middle of another Cold War with the United States. And a few minor facts that state that that's a real possibility is that Mr. Putin was in a meeting where he boasted that a new Russian nuclear weapon or weapons that have been developed by Russia can now penetrate U.S. airspace and cannot be intercepted. And I'll just read a little bit from the article. It says Russia has tested an array of new strategic nuclear weapons that can't be intercepted. The country's President Vladimir Putin announced Thursday, marking a technological breakthrough that would dramatically increase Russia's military capability and boost the Kremlin's global position. And he also presented a video detailing how this is possible. And if you're interested in that, I'd go to the Times of Israel and take a look at this article. Now, of course, this may all be election talk because, like I said, Mr. Putin has made other outlandish claims regarding their military power, but most of it has simply fallen on deaf ears in the United States anyway. And frankly, unless some defector who is working very close with the nuclear division in Russia were to defect, we simply will never know the truth. Now, lastly, somebody sent me an article a number of days ago, but I didn't really get into reading it until today, and it says that the Israeli group issues temple tax coin featuring image of Trump. And here's a picture of the coin right here. And this is what the article says. It says one of the various Israeli groups preparing for the building of the third temple has issued a half-shekel temple tax coin featuring the images of Persians King Cyrus and U.S. President Donald Trump. Cyrus allowed the Jews to return to the land of Israel following their captivity in Babylon and facilitated construction of the second temple. You might say, well, what's the significance of the half shekel? Well, it says in Exodus 30:15, it says, the rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than the half shekel when you give the Lord's offering to make atonement for your lives. So this is a symbolic offering in preparation for the building of the third temple, which will be desecrated by the Antichrist during the tribulation period. And, you know, the professor of this group, or I should say the leader of this group, whose name is Professor Wise, said this, and I want to read this. It says, but Wise cautioned that Trump must not stop now if God's full blessing on his administration is to be bestowed. The Trump declaration must continue with a declaration of the role of the Jews in establishing the temple in its place. Only then will President Trump's international ambitions come true in the Middle East. Well, I kind of thought that was quite shocking that some people actually believe that Mr. Trump is on the verge of bringing the temple back to being on the Temple Mount. But I guess we shouldn't be too shocked. Somebody's going to bring it back because the Bible says that it will exist during the tribulation period and will be desecrated at the halfway point by the Antichrist. And certainly that has always been a puzzle how in the world that's going to take place. But there have been rumors and there have been speculation down through the ages that how that would eventually take place. But here we are, what I believe at least, we're on the doorstep of the rapture of the church and then the starting of the tribulation period. And no temple has been built as of yet. Yes, there is much preparation, and it is believed that once the order is given to rebuild the temple, that would only take months to do so, and certainly less than a year. But this is just one more reason why we need to keep our eyes on Bible prophecy and keep looking at some of the things that are going on in Jerusalem. And if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Don't put it off. Jesus is coming soon, and when he does, if you don't know him, you're not going to be raptured. And worse than that, you could die today. 150,000 people will die today. The Bible says that the vast majority will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Come to the Lord, ask him to save you today. And you Christians, as always, you need a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. Get it in the hands of every lost friend and loved one that you know. Go down to the description section below this video and get your copy. Click on the link that will take you there and choose between either the free digital version or the paperback. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.